Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to MindShifters Radio with your co-host, the For-giveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie. Michael and Jeanie share with you the wisdom of the ancient Aramaic internal process of forgiveness. They offer tools and support 5 days a week. They will support you in building a solid foundation within yourself to live in pure love. In Aramaic, Rachma. Michael is the author of So Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For more information on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. And now your co-host, the For-giveness Doctor, Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce.
To the brightness within you and the truth that is rooted within me.
Welcome to the show, MindShifters Radio. We're delighted to be with you, and our apologies for being a little bit late. We're on the road traveling, as you all know, and we're out here in Heartland where my phone does not work. I just got a new phone, and one of the reasons for making the journey down the road an hour to Heartland was to test the phone, so we know that one's not going to work. So I'm on David's phone. And let's see if Jeanie is with us. Again, I apologize for being late. And Jeanie, are you there? I know that Jeanie had to go and find somewhere to be on the show, so I'm not sure whether she's with us or not.
Oh, hey. I am.
Good.
Actually, I was trying to call you all to see if you were going to get on the show, and then my phone went dead, so I had to run out to the car and find the charger. I am here, and we already have a caller. So
awesome. Okay, well, let's just talk a little bit about the Memorial Day and Veterans Day honoring, and that is that we're inviting everyone who listens to the show every day to become a part of the healing of the issue of war on planet Earth, and to do that by being willing to remove all hostility and fear, one issue at a time. How is this sound coming through, by the way, Jeanie? As we're driving, David's driving, and I'm on the show. So,
it sounds good.
Okay, well, then we can just keep going. Good. I wasn't sure if there's going to be too much road noise. So our invitation to you is to, each day, look at one issue in your life where there's some form of upset, some form of hostility or fear that probably you think belongs to somebody else. You know, the culture's language is, Harry made me angry, Bill made me mad, Joan made me sad, et cetera, and our input to you is nobody can make you anything. There's no because or angry, sad, mad, or afraid, except that there's angry, sad, mad, or afraid inside of us. And you'll notice if you get rid of somebody that yesterday you were saying made you mad, that today you found somebody else who could make you mad because the mad is inside. Forgiveness is the way that you crack through the illusion that you're mad, sad, angry, or afraid about anybody but you, and crack through it, forgive, moving what never belonged. And forgiveness is not about I'm going to let you off the hook because of what's happening inside of me. Forgiveness is, from the Aramaic, the tool with which you go inside yourself and remove what never belonged in a human structure or a human system. And so if you're not familiar with that conversation and you'd like to become more familiar, we would invite you to please go to the website, whyagain.com, and on the right-hand side there's a link that says Download Worksheets. The first 4 links under that section will tell you the whole forgiveness story. It'll give you the worksheet and how to go inside yourself and remove what never belongs. So our conversation is one of, if I'm in some form of hostility or fear, I have no need to forgive anybody, no need to forgive myself. Forgiveness is not about anybody else or self. Forgiveness is about going inside and removing what never belonged. So as we remove that, the reason why people strife and fight and ultimately kill each other is because there's something inside themselves they don't want to be responsible for. That lack of responsibility keeps them disconnected from the source of knowing who they really are and functioning as a true human being. Our invitation is that everybody on the show, together as a community, moves forward to the actual direct experience of living a human life 24/7, 365. And if you have any question about what a human life is, hold a newborn child. I got to do that just a week or so ago as my new granddaughter came into the world, Adeline Nora. We welcome you to our world, and we are, for your sake and the sake of every other child, working to remove all hostility and fear from the earth so that there's a place for you and your children and their children and their children to grow and prosper and to truly live as human beings. So, Jeanie, you've got a caller. Let's entertain our caller and see what they have to say.
Area code 541.
Hi there, Michael and Jeanie. It's Carolyn, and I'm back. And last night
there, young
when
lady. Did you get my messages?
I got one message, and I loved it. I got it when I got home and listened to my messages because I don't check in with my home phone when I'm gone.
I thought I was calling your cell, Carolyn, so I apologize for that. I'll have to make sure to get your cell so that we can call as need be. But I wanted to let you know that we were surrounding you and love, and the whole community was there for you. How did your visit go?
Well, it went fine except for the last day. And as you might recall, I was only with my family for 2.5 days, and then I went on to this spa that Julie paid for. And the last breakfast, just before I left, all hell broke loose.
Yep.
And I did not go down. I know they were really, really majorly pissed off with me, and if I can at some time do a sheet on that with Jeanie's help, I would really like to do that.
Well, I have a couple of thoughts. One, first of all, they were not pissed off with you. They were pissed off, and that's the world they live in. Their pissed offness is not about you. It's about them, as we just finished saying. And it's really common when people come together and there's a departure going to take place for everything that's unsaid and undone and hasn't been resolved to start to come up. So what I've noticed over the years is that when people, even if somebody's, going away for a couple of days on a business trip, that their partner or the person close to them will start to get a little crazy because whatever isn't resolved starts to move in them. So that is not surprising, but I'm delighted that you had a day and a half of peaceful time. That's the fruit of your work, and then being able to sit with them as they go through what's inside of them and is projected onto you. To be able to hold that space of love is the beginning of the dissolution of that stuff in them. So I congratulate you and acknowledge you for, 5 or 6 weeks? The advancement that you've made is awesome, Carolyn.
Well, it's thanks to you and doing the worksheets and to Jeanie and for all of you and for all of you holding me in the light because I sure felt it. But this is a very serious problem that they got upset about, and I'll just say a moment about it because I feel great shame. I know I did wrong, and I did wrong again. Years ago, I stole money from my children. And it's a long, involved issue. I don't want to take time with it on the phone.
Okay, I understand.
But it is a serious problem, and there's been a lot of money, in quote, shit in our family, big-time money shit, and I would like to work out my side of it, and it's not just about that I was leaving and all unresolved. Well, it's part of it for sure, but I need to look at it differently, and I know someday, I really believe with all my heart, that I will heal because I have inside myself what caused all that, but I would like to heal it help them heal it with me, but that's up to them. But I would like to do some, if it's possible, I would like to do some personal work, one worksheet, to get me started with either you or Jeanie, if that's possible.
Okay. Well, I would like to acknowledge your courage for being open enough on our radio show, a public show, to speak about that kind of an issue. That's pretty sensitive. And my highest thought would be that as you resolve and forgive your shame, a lot of times we come from traditions that teach us guilt and shame. And once it's taught us guilt and shame, the very thing that taught us guilt and shame about is, because of the energy, is the thing that becomes attractive to do. So a lot of people think, I did something terrible and therefore I felt guilty. No, I felt guilty and therefore I did something terrible, whatever the guilt was about. That becomes the attractive energy. The world's got it backward. And so as you forgive as to your guilt and your shame around that, then you'll clear that energy out and be able to clean it up in a responsible way with them and make amends. And that will be a big part of your healing process. And very likely, the fact that you are becoming conscious enough to turn that around and to be able to go to them and clean that up is just monumental. That's the kind of thing that's been going on in our family systems for generations. And to have the courage to step forward to do that is awesome. Two thoughts I have then are, one, we would be happy to do a worksheet on the show with you. That's what we're here for. And maybe that's too sensitive to do. And so I actually, with all that I have on my plate, I haven't actually done any one-on-one work for about 10 years with people. But Jeanie does do session time, and if you want to set up an appointment with her, then, I don't know if you're in the chat room or we've got your home number. Jeanie could call you, and she's got a lot going on in her world. We invite everybody, if they would, to hold a space for Jeanie. Her 3 sons and their father were together at Christmas, and he's in a hospice home and looking like perhaps in the next few days he might be getting ready to pass, so no need to say that there are lots of stresses up for the 3 sons. And Jeanie's going to be flying back there tomorrow to create support for them and for him as he passes on and moves to the next world. And so if everybody would hold the space for Jeanie and her family, for Ryan, and for the whole family, Ryan's her son, and Eric is a second son, and Brandon, and that her former husband, Ron, is able to pass consciously and with the presence of light in his mind and in his heart and in the space he's in. We certainly join you, Jeanie, in the healing that it takes. And so I know Jeanie's going to be busy for the next several days, but perhaps, Carolyn, if you want to communicate with her directly, or if you'd like, as I say, we've got your home number. I didn't realize, I thought it was your cell. But, she could maybe call you, and then when she is kind of through this, create a space.
Well, first of all, Jeanie, I 100% will send you the light. I just know how that must be so painful. So you will definitely be sent light from me. And there's no hurry. There's no hurry. This is an issue that didn't happen yesterday. But it's a very deep issue, and I would like to work it out, and I would like to do one and more sheets on it so that I'm really clear on my part of it, because I don't feel terrible, It's what is, and I'm not going to beat myself up about it. But at breakfast before I left, they said, hey, you could go to jail for this. And I know, and they were beating me up pretty bad, and I left feeling pretty sad. And I got over it pretty quick, but nevertheless, I know I need to work on it. So, Jeanie, whenever you have time, next week, whenever, there's no hurry.
Thank you. I'll be in touch with you.
Thank you so much.
And Carolyn, I would just offer in the worksheets that you are doing, and what you might do is if you go to the Y website pardon me, I don't know if you've listened, but there are 2 radio shows where we guided someone through the forgiveness process. And if you go to the section on www.whyagain.com, on the right-hand side, download worksheets, the 3rd and 4th link are where we walk somebody through step by step a real time worksheet on major issues in 2 people's lives. So those 2 are there to support you. And some of the things that I would suggest that you do work on, and one of the things that we work with at Heartland is pointing out the power of our words, and that we never speak out of brain cells that aren't firing in us. And so 2 of the things that you just said was you started out speaking about your shame around this, and so some worksheets around shame. And then as you spoke about how you weren't going to beat yourself up for it, what that says is that there's a dissociated part of your mind that's beating you up over it. And so I would support you in doing some worksheets to open that part of your mind and to get free of the hidden part of yourself that beats up on yourself. If truly you were in a space of internal resolving of that issue, to the point where you could say and just naturally speak, and I'm offering this as feedback for you, but also for our whole listening audience, that when you watch your words, Shakespeare said, "My words fly up, my thoughts remain below." What does that mean? That means that I have words that surface that tell me what's going on in my dissociated or unconscious mind. When I recognize those words, then I realize when I say what I'm not doing, I'm not beating myself up over this. What it's saying is there's a part of my mind that's in that beat-up mode, and that gives us a good clue. So if you just, and again, for everybody in the audience, if you watch your words, when I say to somebody, well, this happened, but I'm not angry about it, what I'm saying to myself is, this happened, I'm angry about it, but I'm going to stay in denial and not own my anger. If, in fact, this happened and I was at peace about it, I'd say, well, this happened and I'm at peace at it. And it's not about learning to say the right words. It's not about censoring your speech. You actually want to just let yourself flow into whatever speech is there so that you have a clue, you have a key into your own dissociated dynamics. A lot of people say, well, I didn't say that right. Well, no, you said it perfectly. You revealed to yourself a part of your hidden mind, and that's the part that needs the resolution and the forgiveness. And I'm not sure what the first word was that you used before you said, I'm not going to beat up on myself, but there was another term that you used, and I've lost it now. But whatever that word was, it again tells you that there's something that I want to do some worksheets around to remove that. And so
I
awesome.
100% agree with you.
Yeah. So I'm right here with you, and we are delighted to be on the team to resolve. The truth is that in all circumstances and all situations, whatever we've done, whatever is done to us, our true being, that newborn presence love, is always fully intact. And all we need to do is bring that back into expression through our physiology. The way we do that is to remove everything that blocks it. And so I join you in removing that shame and guilt and the beating up of yourself so that your newborn essence returns as you so powerfully are doing in so many ways over the last few weeks of being introduced to this work, where you're opening an awesome space on planet Earth for everyone who has the same issue. There's a wonderful line in the Course in Miracles that says, millions yet unborn will benefit from the work you do. So we join you in doing that work, and we're delighted that you're keeping in touch with us and keeping the pen to the paper to keep that work moving.
Michael, more than anything in the whole world, I want to heal everything, and I want to create peace inside myself and with my family.
Awesome. Well, you have our support in that, 2,000%.
Thank you so much. I once sat in a room with Byron Katie. She came and did a workshop here, there were probably 5,000 people, and I stood up and I said, I want to heal the issue that I stole money from my children. And Katie looked at me and she said, well, there's no new news here. And she said, how many in the audience have stolen money from their children or their parents or their best friend or their spouse? And everybody stood up.
Yeah.
So I just want to clear it in myself, and I want to have peace with my family.
So my input would be in that situation, as opposed to there's no news here. There was news from 5,000 people that there was a major piece of forgiveness work that needed to be done in those 5,000 people. And had they had the forgiveness tool, then each and every one of 5,000 people could have gone through, looked at the goal that helped to keep their guilt and shame hidden, and brought it forward and moved to a massive new level of wholeness and healing through that process. And so the fact that you have a link to those folks and to Byron, and I have several people who share with me the awesome work that she's doing on the planet, the fact that you have a link to them, I join with you in radiating the knowledge to each of those people that they can open that space in themselves and totally, completely, 100% remove all shame, all guilt, all fear of being caught, and seeing that.
Right. Thank you for everything that you're doing to help me out, Michael and Jeanie. I think I just lost you.
I think, Michael, you're not on, but Carolyn, you are absolutely welcome, and we are so glad that you're on our team and that you're willing to do the work.
I'm standing up and saying what I need, and I'm very glad that I have you to do it with. So thank you so much. And good luck to you, Jeanie. I surround you with loving thoughts.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's going to be a difficult few days, but I fly back to Tennessee tomorrow, and so we'll just take it day at a time. But thank you very much.
Good luck.
Thanks. All right, well, Michael, if you can still hear us, you are off the switchboard, totally disconnected. So maybe, I know they're driving back this way from Heartland, so perhaps they're going through a particular area where there's no cell signal. So in the meantime, we do have another caller. So area code 607, you're on the air. Who do we have?
It's Richard. How you doing, Jeanie?
Hi, Richard. Good. Yeah, you called in right at the end yesterday, and we couldn't get to you.
Right.
So
well,
if you don't mind, we can talk, and then when Michael gets back to where he has a signal, I'm sure he'll click in.
Sure. Well, I just wanted to, it's sort of interesting that this person came on before me, so it's I just want to make a comment about her situation, and if it's okay. Certainly, what Michael was saying was absolutely true about healing and forgiving and the process of forgiving. And one thing I would just like to say is what she should recognize is that she's already paid her due. She doesn't have to pay it over and over and over again. Her family's trying to make her pay it over again. And she needs to, if she can forgive herself, then she doesn't have to pay that over again. She's already paid it numerous times, and she's still beating herself up. And the reason I called yesterday was because I had accidentally lost my keys the other night before I was getting ready to go to work. And, I'm running around the house trying to find my keys and can't find my keys. And it's driving me crazy because I'm supposed to be at work. And so I called the person and said, look, I'm going to be late because I haven't found my keys. And eventually I found one of my spare keys so I could at least get to work. And I got to work and, let the person know that I still couldn't find my keys. And when I was there, I was like still upset that I hadn't found my keys. And it was like, am I going to be here all night worrying about where my keys are and where they are? And I looked in my backpack, and I thought, well, maybe I accidentally put them in there, and they weren't in there. And then finally I said, I'm going to look in my jacket one more time. Lo and behold, I found them in another pocket, and I realized what had happened when I had come home yesterday, Christmas Day. I had taken my jacket off and accidentally put it on the chair backwards and threw my keys in the pocket. Well, later on, I realized that my jacket was backwards, and I switched it around correctly. So when I came to go to work, my keys were in the regular pocket, and I was driving myself crazy looking for my keys. But the point about it, the whole point of this thing is that later on, I realized that, I made the comment the next morning to the person that was coming on shift. I said, I can't believe this, I told her what happened. I said, I hate myself when I do this. And lo and behold, I realized I needed to just sit down and do a worksheet on self-hatred, because I really was hating myself for doing this, and why am I blaming myself? It's a stupid mistake.
And notice that all of the worry and everything didn't change the situation one bit. So the difference in the forgiveness is not necessarily that's culture terms it forgiving yourself. That's kind of like letting yourself off the hook, which is a nice thing to do. But true forgiveness is going in and removing whatever part there is in you that beats yourself up, that you feel like, you have to blame yourself. Someone else isn't beating you up, so you get to do it to yourself. And that happens all the time. But it's removing the capacity to feel that anger or that self-beating up or the hatred or the anger or whatever is in there, so that you're in the exact same situation, the same thing's going on, but you have no emotional tie going on to it. I kind of use it as an example of the story in the scriptures where it talks about Yeshua was walking on the water, and there was this huge storm going on. And Peter says, I know that if you call to me, I can walk on water to you. And so Jesus is like, well, come on. And so he gets out, and as long as he keeps his eyes focused on where he's going, he walks on water. As soon as he starts looking at the storm around him, he sinks. And it's the exact same situation, but it's where is our focus. And so the same kind of garbage can be going on in our space and in our world with our relatives or whatever. They can be playing the same games they play, but we can stay in that connected space and stay on top instead of sinking in it. And so it's up to us where we're going to keep our focus, and it's removing all of the other things that would cause us to look at the circumstances around us versus looking inside and staying connected to our source. And I see Michael's back on the air with us. Michael, I'm talking to Richard. And, Michael, do you have your mute button on?
Okay, we're on it. The mute button's a little funky on this phone, so. Yes, okay. I don't know at what point we lost you back there. I did a whole dissertation for David and I guess.
Well, we lost you while Carolyn was still on. So.
Right.
And this is Richard. I jumped on at the time and basically was commenting on how you were, your whole concept of forgiveness was right on, and what you were telling her was right on. And basically, it was sort of like a good situation for me, because I had just commented to Jeanie how I had got upset the night before going to work because I couldn't find my keys, and didn't find them until after I got to work, and actually found them in my jacket, which I had looked through previously. Anyway, the point I had made was I had gotten upset over it, and then realized that there was a lot of self-hatred going on because I couldn't find my keys and be at work on time. So it was
awesome.
And so the worksheet was on Richard hating himself over something like losing my keys and finding them myself. And it wasn't, anybody else. I couldn't blame it on anybody else. I was the only one in the house. I obviously misplaced them and just couldn't find them. But I was on a time scale to get to work, and so I was beating myself up because of doing something stupid. And so anyway,
Richard, if you look, the another place to go to the next level with that one is to look at why, when Richard doesn't perform properly, i.e. doesn't do everything perfectly, why is the default setting in your mind, or as we talked yesterday, the terminate and stay resident program in your mind, to go into rage and beat up on yourself? And what you'll find behind that is usually a power person dynamic. And actually, last night we were in Branson, Missouri, and David came over and spent the night with us. And in my worksheets last night, I actually went out and chatted with David a little bit because what I uncovered in my worksheet was it was a worksheet that I was doing around my dad, and really got in touch with the generational rage that fathers have towards their son, mothers have towards their daughters, mothers have towards their son, fathers have towards their daughters. And really recognizing, there are always 1,000 variations on the theme as to, what the mind feeds us as to why we're doing it. But the bottom line is we're doing it because it's such a generational pattern. And as Jeanie said, if your power person wasn't there to rage at you, the whole terminate and stay resident program is within you and ready to be triggered into action. So whether, that power person is there or not, I'll, move forward and do it to myself. And so I would suggest that beyond the worksheets around yourself and self-hatred, that you might do some worksheets around your power person, whether it was mom or dad or whoever it was, that used to rage at you when you didn't perform perfectly. And one of the things, and we'd invite the whole audience, I was going to bring this up on the show today, so you just created the perfect lead-in for it, Richard, thank you. But the invitation and what David and I spoke about last night was to become the space and the willingness to heal this generational rage that parents have toward their children. You look at the kinds of abuses that happen in the culture, the children that are murdered and damaged emotionally, physically, verbally, and this is a huge issue on planet Earth. I did some work with some folks recently from Africa, and they said it's just so traditional for the parent to beat up on the child. And it's a global issue, a global thing. And so I'd invite you and everybody that's in the on the show right now. I know that Linda called in a week or so ago and shared how, as a kid, her father was pretty gentle, except for one time when he basically threw her across the room. That's that generational rage. And so that we, as a community, become the space of support for literally removing this intergenerational rage that has reflected in all the different kinds of abuses that happen and leave scars and pain and trauma within each generation, which then gets not so lovingly passed on to the next generation. So I'd certainly ask you to join us in being able to look at that. I know that's becoming a focus for my worksheets last night as I finished off my last worksheet and went into breathing and asking Ruka to move that energy, to remove it. And it's time for this to be done on planet Earth. And, I'm particularly inspired by the fact that we have a new grandchild and that we remove this so that we don't have to carry the scars of our forebears, and our children and their children and their children to be free of it as well.
That's very true. And, I hear exactly what you're saying, and it brings up an issue for me with my co-worker at work, who is presently my supervisor, who likes to, he's, son of a military person, and obviously he's learned how to use his rage and his upset and anger to trigger other people, and I'm finding myself in that situation, and how do I approach him and talk to him about his anger and rage, and offer the assistance to help him heal?
Well, you might just do some responsibility communication with him. around what comes up for you around that, and also the possibility of introducing it to worksheets. I know we had, Julie Haberstick is the woman who wrote the book Healing Children, Loving Children, and several years ago she had a niece that she was introducing to the worksheet process, and she lived in Ohio at that time, and her niece was flying in from New York to spend the weekend with her. And she introduced her to the worksheet, and her niece was feeling some wounds from the interaction with her boss, who, in her words, they had an acknowledged hate relationship. She hated her boss hated her. And so she and Julie spent the whole weekend doing worksheets around her relationship with her boss. When she got into work on Monday morning, she wasn't there very long when her boss called her into the office and said, "What's going on? What happened?" And she said, "What do you mean?" So, "Well, something's changed." And her boss noticed the change, the shift, and asked her what she'd been doing. And so this gal, Julie's niece, shared, "I've been doing this forgiveness process around what goes on in our office and between us." And her boss said, well, what do you mean? Tell me, what do you got? And so she shared the worksheet, and they started doing worksheets together. I don't remember exactly. This goes back now 15 years ago, but whatever the time frame was, it was just a matter of, a short time later, 6 months or so later, a job posting came up in the company. She worked for a large insurance company. She had a high school diploma and would never go any farther than what her, incremental, raises were, but she'd never move higher in the company. And there was a posting for a job for which she was not qualified. And her boss, with whom she had the acknowledged hate relationship, went to head office and said, "Here's what we're going to do. You're going to hire her to do this job for which she is not technically qualified but can do, and we're going to give her the time off, and you're going to pay for her education to go to school to get the degree that she needs to have in order to be technically qualified for the job." So the person who 6 months earlier they were in hate with each other started doing worksheets together, and more than doubled her salary, which she never could have ever attained in that company. And the company paid for her to get the degree to be able to do the job. So I'd do that. I'd invite you to look at that, and certainly that so-called military discipline, that space. I know that I've worked with several military people over the years, and generally speaking, they instill, we talked about instilling realities. They instill very early in a person's life that you don't violate my mores or you are in trouble. The installation of that, and you look at, if you think that hasn't impacted you, if you come from a military family, then I invite you to look at, whenever you look at your power person, and what comes up for you when you think about displeasing them. And what I've observed over the years is it's terror. Now, it comes in many subtle forms, and it comes in but I just love them, and I want to please them, and I want to take care of them. But the truth is, underneath it, because that's how the military works. It works with, we talked on the show the other day about propitiation. T.S. Eliot's poem explains propitiation, doing the right thing for the wrong reason. It appears that nobody in the military is all that interested, at least as I've observed, in doing the right thing for the right reason. It's doing the right thing for the wrong reason. We will kill you if you don't do this when you're told to do it. That's pretty much going to force just about anybody into propitiation. And with those realities instilled, if they come from a family system where those are not the realities, then that military training puts those realities into people's minds. And then they, the child, especially of the system, very, very, very early, oftentimes not even in memory, learns to be terrified of their power person and seals that part of their mind off so they never look at it, they never deal with it. But, boy, you just watch their faces when they come close to a situation where they might displease dad or mom. And you know the kind of terror that's there and the kind of terror that operates underneath the relationship. And so I'd support you being able to do any work that you have around that type of not discipline but abuse. The word discipline comes from the word disciple. It means properly taught. It does not mean, when we talk about military discipline, it's properly beat up. the world's cheap copy of discipleship is discipline. And so I'd invite you to do some worksheets around that and maybe some responsibility communication with your coworker. And who knows, you might be the one that opens up the space for his healing. And what an awesome gift to give somebody who has no clue what's in there and no possibility of ever opening it without tools.
Right. Well, I after my colleague's suicide, I actually gave worksheets out to everybody in my group, and actually offered to my supervisor to go through a forgiveness worksheet as part of one of our meetings, and he absolutely refused and said no. And so I've already approached him about, the worksheet and the value of it, and he's already rejected that at one point already. So,
Dr. Andraki shared on the show when we were starting last year that he'd gone to he's the physician out in Las Vegas and Pahrump, Nevada, that's doing this work with his patients, and he shared with me how at Christmas he'd gone home last year and basically right during the Christmas family dinner presented the idea that we need to clean up some family dynamics and family issues, and was basically shut down. And he had just come back from that annual family gathering where there was some increased stress because just a few days before Christmas his father passed away. And he had two family members, as a result of his conversation a year ago, come forward and say, I want to do something with this. I understand. I hear you. And I've seen it take people 10 years to respond to that and come back. So I'd hold the space with you that it's been heard. Your boss, our coworker, obviously will be seeing the shifts in you. And, just a gentle, constant communication about responsibility and healing helps people build brain cells. If you go back to the ancient Aramaic, the man named Yeshua said that his teaching was centered on and focused on forgiveness, was only for those who had the eyes to see and the ears to hear. When you present this to someone who only has the eyes to see and the ears to hear of abuse and discipline being properly punished and properly beat up, and boy, don't you dare ever cross the power person, don't you dare displease the power person, then that person doesn't have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, especially relative to that hidden part of the mind, that dissociated part of the mind. And so as you help someone to build the brain cells, there comes a point where they go, oh, what was that you were saying? That sounds interesting. I didn't know that was possible. So as you demonstrate it and as you speak it, it becomes part of the vernacular in the office. And all of a sudden the community opens. It was interesting. We were at a timeshare in Florida last week with Jeannie's parents, and we were at the same place last year with them. And Jeannie had gone in to turn in, whatever, check out of the space, and ended up, I forget how long, Jeannie could correct me, but spending an hour or 2 hours with the office staff. And this time when we were leaving, I went in to do the quick checkout and to deliver a book to somebody who had asked for it in the office. And the office staff was like, oh, where's your wife? Why isn't she in here? She's here, isn't she? We were hoping she'd come and talk to us some more. And so I went out to the car and got Jeanie. And, we could have stayed there for 5 hours. And everybody in the office, including the manager of the office, came out. One of the maintenance workers had accidentally connected with me. We had a conversation about forgiveness, and this guy acknowledged I'm in my 50s and my life is hell, and I just left another relationship and I don't know how to get free of it. And I said, well, here's the book. Your name's Richard. And he read the book, and he came back and he said, yeah, I'm Richard. That's me. I said, okay, so here's what you do about it. And he was on the show that afternoon. So,
just like me.
You never know when it's going to take hold. Jeanie, go ahead.
No, I said, Richard. This is Richard. I said, just like me.
Yeah, that's it. That's what it takes. It takes time to build the brain. Yeah, that's right. You first contacted this work and hung around it. I don't remember exactly how long. It was a couple of years, right, before you went and find me. Let me go check this out a little deeper.
Right. Anyway, well, thank you for the encouragement. Certainly I will And as you said, it's more important for me to do the work and demonstrate the healing than letting other people see that this process works than trying to take the worksheet to him and inviting him again to sit down with me and go through a worksheet possibly. I mean, I'm assuming you've been around the physics community in the past. And,
around which community?
The physics community, physicists in general. And I'm not, I guess in a sense, sort of characterizing physics or being how do I want to say this? Generalizing here when I say that you run into a lot of egos in physics. And
well, Richard, they don't have an exclusive. I don't care where you go. You can go to a local gas station. You'll find lots of it. It's just it's the game on planet Earth. When one is not connected to their own original being, in the circle of life and how to play it workshop, I point out that the game is that the person on the lower path cuts somebody else's head off in order to appear a head taller. Because when one doesn't know of their own substance and status, when they don't know who they are, when they're not connected to their original being, then there's a false sense of self that is based in fear and rage. And that false sense of self, that false literal non-being self, is the one that has to cut somebody else down in order to appear taller because there's no substance to that non-being self. Each person, when they connect to true being, simply stands as a space of love for everybody and support and uplifting of everybody. You go back to Yeshua and you look at the people who are beating on him and physically, verbally, emotionally abusing him, and what does he do? He stands as a space of love. And our invitation to everybody is to recognize that whatever's going on in your world, if you can't stand as a space of love for that, if you can't embrace that out of love, then you have a problem. And if your conversation goes into some form of hostility or fear, pointed at or speaking about them or yourself, then there's your forgiveness work. So,
yeah,
I can't embrace as love is my work.
Right.
And as I keep remembering that, I get to move through layer by layer by layer. And as you do that, you open a space for everybody who touches you.
I certainly was aware of my gut tightening after you started talking, and so obviously this is another issue that I have to forgive and work on myself.
Welcome to the human race.
There you go. Anyway, it's been a pleasure, and I hope you guys are having a wonderful holiday season. And also, I want to express my to Jeanie. I recall when my father passed away that if I'm just going to tell this story because I was planning on being. It happened that my father passed away on Easter weekend, about 3 or 4 years ago. And I had been making plans to go down and see him because I was starting my journey out west again to go to a conference that I go to. And we had talked, but the family was in to see him in the middle of the week, like on Wednesday, and shared the phone with me, and I basically had the opportunity to tell my father I loved him at that point over the phone. And I heard him say back, I love you too. And I, at that point, decided, okay, I need to, what I had planned on doing when I went to see him was inviting him to go ahead and go to the light. And I remember in my meditations at night just inviting him to go to the light. Don't be afraid. Just go ahead and go to the light. And this was like, Thursday and Friday. And Saturday morning, I got a call from my brother and he said that, my dad actually seemed to be perked up that morning and was looking better than he had been for a while. And, of course, I left my phone at my house and went and had some coffee and came back. When I got back, there was a message on my phone that he had passed on. So I didn't actually, that was the day I was planning on going down to see him. Right. Just holding in mind the invitation for him to go to the light, go towards the light, gave him the, when I talked to somebody about it later, they said, well,
right.
It obviously let him be free to go ahead and go. I'm just
that's part of
that
Jeannie's plan, I know, in going to Bristol, is to create that space of support for her former husband, to be able to do that and to just let go.
Right. So anyway, I wish you guys well in your journey, and
thank you.
And I'll be talking to you later.
Thank you, Richard.
I look forward to seeing you next number at Teachers Training. Jeanie, go ahead.
Looking for it myself.
Lots of love.
I was just saying thank you. And Nene was in the chat room, and she said that she would be more than willing to help at CSL if I'm not back down in Fort Lauderdale during that workshop. So she said she is there to help. Yeah.
You are a blessing, Nene. Thank you.
So we don't have any other callers. We're down to 5 minutes.
Okay. Anything happening in the chat room?
No, just basically some chit-chat back and forth, but no questions.
Okay, well then, Jeanie, I just put the invitation out. We've got a few minutes for you to share whatever's in your heart and what's going on for you around heading to Bristol, for what you're going to be dealing with there, and what kind of support our community can offer to you.
Well, it's kind of a difficult time. I've talked to Ron about every day, but today when I talked to him, you couldn't even understand any of his words. It was just, like garbled. And but yesterday when I talked to him, he was saying, that he was just waiting, for God to come through the door, and that he wasn't there, and I don't think there's anybody there that's conscious enough to say, hey, go on. But he's talking to people that aren't there, or at least not in everybody else's sight.
Right, no physical presence.
Right. And so just to be there to help him to be able to let go and to transition. And it's going to be hard on the boys, and just, for me to be able to hold the space for them so that they can work through. Right now the stress level is so high, and they're starting to get at each other's throat, which they really don't need to do. And I've tried to talk to them on the phone, and so I think being face-to-face with all of them, too, will help just to be able to smooth it out. So holding the space for me that I can hold the space for them is probably the best support that you can do.
Well, we will be lifting you up totally and completely, and I hope that Ron holds on till you get there before he leaves, and that is probably just time for him to be letting go, and that you're able to support him in doing that and have a final and awesome and powerful, loving communication with him to send him off in the light, that he goes consciously and goes right to the absolute presence of love. And for anyone who that conversation doesn't make a lot of sense to, if that's a new conversation for you, we invite you to jump on the web, and you'll find a DVD entitled Saved by the Light. And it's a true story. You'll actually find some sites that will say there's only a VHS available, but there's actually a company or somebody up in Canada, if I remember correctly. It's about $15. Awesome movie, worth buying. And it's about a fellow named Daniel Brinkley who was hit by lightning and died for, I think it was 28 minutes. His body died, but he had a direct experience of a human life. And, the two messages that Daniel brought back from his near-life experience, certainly not a near-death experience, the two messages that he brought back that he focuses on and He went from being a hired killer to being traveling around and working in hospice groups in military facilities and holding the hands of the dying to show them that there is a way to the light and that they can let go of the pain, the post-traumatic stress, the trauma that they hold, and literally move into that direct light experience while they're still in their bodies and as they transition and move out of it. So if that's a new conversation, very powerful, true movie, or true life story. Very well played by Eric Roberts, Julia Roberts' brother, and a very powerful film to watch. And Saved by the Light, Daniel Brinkley, true life story. So we're there for Ron and for the boys and for you, sweetie. We definitely hold the space for the whole extended family. I don't know, is Kathy coming down?
I don't know. I talked to her just a few moments ago, and so I'm not sure if they're going to make another trip down or if they're just going to wait until he passes. But one of the scenes in that movie that you're talking about is kind of what I have in mind happening. His mother has had a stroke or a heart attack or something, and he's sitting by her bed holding her hand, and she talks about seeing a young girl. And she says, "Oh, it's my sister." And he tells her, we'll go to her.
She's able to do that, yeah. So my whole body's tingling. My whole body's tingling, and we can skip the closure thing for the show today and finish off with this conversation. But, we hold that will be able to happen, and that he can go and leave everything behind that doesn't belong in his human field, and that anything you have that still connects in with it is able to be released at the same time. So we hold you in our hearts. We hold everybody on the show in our hearts and in a blessing. And we hold that this is getting ready to be the best year yet of your eternal lives. Everybody, bring a stranger to the show tomorrow. We'll look forward to hearing from you then. Blessings. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to MindShifters Radio with the For-giveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie, who present that internal Aramaic process of forgiveness. Michael and Jeanie are here every Monday through Friday on Earth Angels Radio. For more on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. That's www.whyagain.com.